It was during in the early hours of December 8, 1941 in the Philippines when Japanese planes strafed and bombed American naval ships and military installations at Pearl Harbor. News of the attack reached the Philippines shortly. By morning, a planned retaliatory strike on Japanese airfields on Formosa, now Taiwan, was postponed and the bombers were left open on the runways at Iba and Clark airfields due to a miscommunication and lack of organization among Army officials. This proved to be a fatal mistake since as many as around 500 Japanese bombers and fighters took off from the same airfield they were supposed to bomb and took them by surprise. This raid cut out the strength of the air forces in the Philippines by half in just a single day. The Japanese asserted their dominance in the skies by conducting repeated attacks at Clark and Nichols Air Base. It is during these succeeding air battles that Captain Jesus Villamor will be known for, as his squadron of B-26 shooters shot down 4 superior Japanese warplanes, 2 of which is credited to Captain Villamor himself. However, despite the defense carried out by the less experienced Filipino and American pilots, the continuous Japanese air raids on airfields and naval bases crippled their operations to put up a stiffer defense. By December 15, the skies were controlled by the Japanese and the majority of the US Asiatic Fleet was forced to move south and join what was left of the British Eastern Fleet and the Dutch and Australian Navy in the defense of the Malay Peninsula. This leaves the defense of the entire Philippine archipelago with only 1 working destroyer and a couple of submarines and patrol boats. While all these raids were happening, Japanese advanced landings were taking all over the country. The Japanese troops assigned to take the Philippines was from the 14th Army, which are comprised of 2 divisions. They're a mix of fresh recruits and veteran units from the Chinese front. Unlike the American and Filipino troops, they are well equipped, well trained, and well supported by light tanks and air force. Altogether, they are numbered to be 43,110 men, and they were led by General Masaharu Homa. The first of the Japanese troops to land was in Batanes on December 8th. It was soon followed by landings on Apari and Vigan to the north and Legazpi Albay in the South Luzon. Davao and Jolo in Mindanao were also taken during the initial landings. These advanced landings were met with only light resistances with the Japanese troops in the north advancing as far as San Fernando La Union by December 22nd, where coincidentally the main landing at Lingayen Gulf was happening. Only the barely trained and stretched divisions of the 11th and 21st Philippine Army Division, supplemented by the 71st Infantry, 26th Cavalry Regiment, and 192nd Tank Battalion, was defending the 120 miles coastline of Lingayen. Much of the ground troops and artillery were emplaced on the shores of the Gupan, where they expected the Japanese to land, but the bulk of the Japanese 14th Army landed instead at the beaches of Agoo, Aringay, and Bawang, where only the 71st Infantry was waiting and was soon driven out. An infantry battalion from the 11th Division from the town of Mortis was sent to confront the Japanese landings at Agoo, but fled back after a minor skirmish. They were joined soon by the 26th Cavalrymen with a platoon of 192nd Tank Battalion to defend the town of Mortis. This is where the first tank battle between the equally matched American and Japanese tanks happened. However, with the combined Japanese air support and anti-tank guns, they were routed on the towns of Rosario, Josorubio, and Bidalonan, where they also took the brunt of the attack, forcing General Jonathan Wainwright, commander of the North Luzon Force, to order retreat behind the Agno River. A day after the Lingayen landings, approximately 7,000 Japanese troops from the 16th Division of Lieutenant General Susumu Morioka landed at Lamon Bay in the towns of Mauban, Atimonan, and siyain. Only a handful of troops from the 1st Infantry Division at Mauban and 52nd Infantry at Atimonay were in their position to counter the Japanese as the rest of General George Parker's South Luzon force were placed on Batangas or on their way to Legazpi, Albay to meet the Japanese advance landing that happened earlier. Not take long for the Japanese to take their objectives, even after an initial heavy fighting on the beaches. A day before Christmas of 1941, the Japanese have been successful on gaining a foothold in North and South Luzon, as well as the other parts of the country. Given the growing dire situation, General MacArthur and his command finally made the decision to consolidate all his remaining troops and make a last stand in Bataan until reinforcements arrive. The Bataan Peninsula, with the coastal fort island of Corregidor, was recognized as a key to the control of Manila Bay, and it was to be defended to the last extremity, according to War Plan Orange. Bataan's mountainous terrain and jungles, which gives defensive advantages, is another reason why it was chosen, while Corregidor was already an established coastal fort with its artilleries guarding the entrance to Manila Bay. When the order was given to withdraw to Bataan, key Filipino and American officials, including President Manuel Quezon, was evacuated to Corregidor before they were taken to United States. Manila was declared an open city on December 26, but was still bombed by Japanese planes on the days that followed. By January 2nd, Japanese forces finally occupied Manila. Meanwhile, troops from the Northern and Southern Luzon force fought a defensive withdrawal until they reached their planned main line of resistance on the Mauban-Abukay line. Most notable was a defense at Layak Junction, which successfully seized all of retreating units intact due to the skill and bravery displayed by men such as Sergeant Jose Calugas, a mess hall sergeant who manned a gun battery under fire, holding off Japanese for hours. Sergeant Calugas was eventually awarded with the Medal of Honor for his actions. By the time they reached their designated lines on Bataan on January 7, around 13,000 men were lost, a huge portion of which are from desertion or units that were cut off and hid in the mountains rather than battle casualties. Those deserters who did not heed quietly or collaborated with the Japanese would later start or join the ranks of resistance groups in various parts of the country. Meanwhile, the Japanese suffered close up to 2,000 casualties only since the initial landings. However, as the Japanese captured Manila, they underestimated the amount of resistance combined Filipino and American forces can still put up in Bataan. General Homa's best division, as well as most planes from the 5th Air Group, were recalled to prepare for the invasion of Indonesia and other Southeast Asian islands. The battle for Bataan is now set. Filipino and American defenders have done all they could to fortify their defense and retreated all men, ammunitions, food, and medicine to hold out as long as they could until help arrives. If you like this video, please be sure to leave a like or comment, and feel free to share videos with your family and friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more upcoming videos. You may also reach us through our social media accounts and donate through our Gcash, BPI, and PayPal accounts to help support the channel. You can see further details in the caption. Feel free to let us know what other topics you would like us to discuss next time. Thank you and mabuhay!